yeah, we're not going to worry about it anymore. That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example. And then the fact that, when she drops that line of like how, well, my kid can't go to the same school as your kid, you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, this is like for real, that
Mm-hmm.
there's this prejudice still happening, and you could see why the 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 ones who are in the position of power are like, yeah, we don't need to change history. And the people who are the ones who have suffered because history has not been presented correctly are like, yeah, we totally need to change history, because the effect is still being felt to that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real tangible thing. And it's really, I mean, this is a really well crafted story, because it really does touch on a lot of stuff that people still experience today. There's still a lot of preconceived ideas, deeply ingrained prejudices that
Mm-hmm.
people carry with them, and um, it's based on just stuff you were taught as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
jokes you heard growing up as a kid that as an adult you struggle with to say, that's not really appropriate. How do I move past that?
Mm-hmm.
This episode is just, I mean, it could have come out today and it would still be timely. Like
Yes.
it absolutely, it holds up to the modern era.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I also
I
think it holds up in a unique way because like it doesn't take place in a Star Trek timeline. Like it's its
mm-hmm.
own thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's so easily accessible whenever you're watching it because it's in its own kind of reality because
Mm-hmm.
it takes place 700 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So I think there's that aspect of it giving this additional timeliness, and that was just a smart way of having it set so far ahead.
Right.
Was these things are still happening 700 years later. Prejudice is still alive and well, in this other culture society.
Mm-hmm. So one thing about Star Trek is that they work in some pretty deep themes a lot.
Hmm.
Like sometimes there are some ridiculous episodes that don't
Oh,
really have anything to do with
plenty,
anything.
plenty of those.
You know, sex with a ghost alien or whatever.
Please, somebody pick that episode.
But there are so many good episodes that are like when I was looking up stuff about this one, which I hope you all brought stuff because I didn't write anything down really except for the Schadenfreude thing. um, like it said that it's one of the highest rated, most beloved episodes
Mhm.
of Voyager, and
Mm-hmm.
like after watching this episode, I feel like it's probably one of the best Star Trek episodes. Like it's really good. I mean, granted, I haven't seen everything yet.
I was reading a lot about like how it ranks and everything. As far as holodeck episodes, it's top 10 of like everyone's list on for Voyager episodes. It's top 5 because we're not really seeing what's happening to the Voyager crew members, but it's such a good story. Even though it's 700 years later, you still feel for the doctor in this moment because like this whole culture and society is judging the doctor based on so much wrong information.
Yeah. And I think something too that this episode is very good at is, or something I think that Star Trek is very good at, is that it doesn't shy away from the issues that are universal issues.
Hmm.
Issues of equality and prejudice and sexuality at times. Not that this episode particularly deals with that, but certainly Star Trek doesn't shy away from those heavier issues. And this episode has loads of it, just not being afraid to call out prejudice and racism, and rewriting history to serve your own narrative, or have one person being judged by the actions of in this case, an entire ship. I love that Star Trek doesn't shy away from these types of things, and rather it brings it out into the light, because I think that that's part of the human experience, is that even Star Trek being set so far in the future, and in theory we've all moved past bigotry and racism, but you still encounter it in
Mhm.
the world, and you still have to stand up to it. And
Mhm.
I think that that's great about Star Trek. It's constantly telling you to not be afraid to stand up to those things,
Mhm.
and to stand up for what's right, and to not be pulled into the racism and the bigotry and all that. And I think this episode does that. I think it's telling you just to know when you see something that's wrong, you have to speak up and say something.
I agree. It's like, do I ever want to go on to the last? We have such a good
Oh,
discussion. I don't even want
I
to finish
know,
this.
it's such a good
the ending of
conversation.
this episode, though, is one of my favorite Star Trek endings, though. I just,
I did not expect the ending of this. So
right?
we have Doctor and Quarren talking, and the Doctor's wondering about the crew again, and then he mentions Torres, who we didn't see, because I guess they didn't have any records of her to put her in there. I don't know. And he kind of goes on, he kind of like wistfully remembers, or, oh, she was beautiful and wonderful and stubborn, or whatever. Like, it's great stuff. Like, some explosions and stuff, and they go out, and there is a group of Vaskins who are destroying the museum. They found out about the Doctor showing up, and that it's a museum of lies. Uh, and then we see the next day, the Doctor's like, where's the tricorder? That would have information about how the other guy, what is his
Who
name?
actually, what weapon actually
Yeah, what
killed
weapon
Tedrin?
actually shot Tedrin? Yeah, I was like, I couldn't remember Tedrin's name. It would have his information. It would tell him what kind of gun it was or whatever. Um, and they can't find it, and the Doctor's just kind of like, just don't worry about it. This has caused so much problems. Just go ahead and keep your truth, and just delete my program. He's like, don't worry about it. I've caused so much trouble, and I hate that, basically. Then we find out that they're still in a simulation in the museum, because it's years later. The museum is now showing the simulation of the Doctor being there and all of the stuff happening in that order of what we just watched. So it's like Midsummer
Simulation
Night's
in a
Dream, play
simulation.
within a play. Yes, simulation within a simulation. And I was like,
Inception.
what? Yes. I've never seen that, so I don't ever use that as a reference.
Oh, okay.
But I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and there's a play within the play, so that's what I always forget. Or it's like when you have a dream within a dream, because I have those a lot. She goes on, now it's like a female curator. She says that Quarren had died like 6 years after what they just watched. The Doctor was around for several years, being their medical chief guy, doctoring about. Then he decided one day to leave, and he took a ship and he went to the Alpha Quadrant because he wanted to find out what had happened to the Voyager. So he was going to go research.
I love that ending so much. He decides to head to the Alpha Quadrant and find out what happened to Voyager. I love that ending. I think it's so it's very much riding off into the sunset. I really like that.
It really is, and like, I just like knowing that, this isn't the Doctor that survives all through season 7 of Voyager, but like, there's this version of the Doctor that's still out there somewhere in the universe.
Yeah, his backup program is out, researching his long lost friends and stuff. Oh, it's so sad.
It's almost like a bittersweet ending. It's almost like, in a way, and stick with me on this. It's almost like the end to Captain America: The First Avenger, when Cap wakes up and it's, I had a date. I mean, it's very bittersweet. You're happy that Captain America survived. You're happy that he's in the modern time now and he can have his own adventures with the Avengers. But at the same time, he had a date and he missed it because, he made a very, heroic, selfless decision. In his own way, the Doctor is a man out of time, kind of also.
I mean, he calls himself a Rip Van Winkle.
Absolutely. And you think about, like, once he gets to the Alpha Quadrant, obviously Voyager's crew is long gone,
Mm-hmm.
and but he's hoping to find, the records at least of what happened to them, and hopefully they got back home and all this and that. So it's a very bittersweet ending, and you could almost have your own little fan fiction series of the Doctor's adventures on the way back to the Alpha Quadrant. It's
I'd watch
just
that.
I would too, actually. Robert Picardo in his own show, absolutely.
Like, I like the idea of him like running into other versions of himself. That version of the hologram is probably the same one that was given out to other ships and stuff at that same time and not upgraded, because I have seen the one with 80 Dick and he's the upgraded version or whatever. And so like him interacting with other, just finding the things and turning them on, and then not being sassy or anything, and it
Sure.
just him teaching hologram versions of himself and others how to be more human.
And speaking of that, I would love to see the Doctor somewhere in the Picard era. Just
Oh,
after
yeah.
the whole synths have been, now it's okay to have synths again, like artificial intelligence, we're okay with that. Like, what's been going on with the Doctor during that time? I would love for them to explore
Yeah.
that.
No, absolutely. It would be fun to see him and Seven of Nine together again. That's for sure. Absolutely. I would enjoy that very much.
Because it's very clear that he has feelings for Seven of Nine.
Yeah, for sure. And as the series goes on, you see it more and more. But yeah, I would totally love to see him in Picard, see what he would do and what he's up to, and um, especially since we've gotten Seven of Nine, that's like it would be great to see him as well.
Yeah. All
So
right.
you heard it here first, people. We want Robert
Ha.
Picardo in Picard season 2.
Watch
Well,
out for when we're out with our signs
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
CBS.
didn't they just do like
Bring in
some,
the
the
doctor.
cast of Voyager did a like a reunion
Oh.
something?
Yeah, they just did like a virtual reunion. I think everybody showed up.
Yeah.
So that
Hey,
was yeah.
and if the Community virtual reunion got them talking about Community the movie, I'm just saying things could happen.
They could indeed happen. I mean, all those actors are all still around. I don't know about Robert Beltran if he'd want to come back and play Chakotay, as he very famously tried to get fired for years. So I don't know.
Oh, I don't know this. He tried to get fired?
So apparently, he took the job, as the legend goes. He took the job of playing Chakotay, and he didn't expect the series to last very long, a la Patrick Stewart in TNG. Um, and then as the show went on, and then after they introduced Seven of Nine, he really felt like his character just kept getting crappy storylines. So he basically decided he was going to
He
try to
got
get.
yard.
He did get Yard.
He did.
Yes, he got Yard because you still had, like, even though there were a lot of Seven of Nine centric episodes, you still had Tom and Harry on their adventures. You had Tom and B'Elanna. You had Neelix and Tuvok. You had the Doctor. Like, you had people. You had Janeway doing her stuff, and then it was like, and then there's Chakotay, which they didn't know what to do with him after a while, and so he basically set out on a campaign to get fired, and so he basically would, like, just show up and kind of phone in his performance a little bit, but every year they kept giving the staff raises and he kept getting a raise. And so he was like, I can't get fired. And he ended up sticking with it till the end. So I don't know how he would
Yeah,
feel now.
I'd seen like a quote from him that was like, that just sounded like he was kind of like, yeah, I got stuck with this thing, kind of thing.
I mean, he kind of, yeah.
He did get stuck with a role that, like, I feel like there are moments in the series, especially in this episode, where he really does an amazing job, but they don't really do anything with his character, and I feel like he's really, really underused.
Oh, 100%. And
Because he should have been in more, because he has such a nice, soothing voice.
Yeah,
I had such a crush on him when this show was airing live.